I'm going to tell you guys the honest truth about starting and scaling a $3 billion company. So I started just by managing a 60-unit apartment building in downtown Seattle, where my compensation was $600 a month and a one-bedroom apartment. What I learned at that very basic job was how to run an apartment building, how to operate it. Most people know how to buy them, and most people know how to raise capital, like Wall Street. But hardly anybody knows how to run them. And that actually is the key to the entire business. So that first job in property management actually gave me the courage and the wisdom and a little bit of experience to be able to scale my company and buy more real estate, because all fundamentals start with the basics of collecting rent or income through sales and paying expenses and having money left over at the end. The basis of any business starts with the act of managing the business itself. In the case of the 60-unit building, it was collecting rents from the people that lived there and paying all the expenses like property taxes, insurance, utilities, and all of those things with the anticipation of having cash flow at the end. And all businesses have the exact same model. So once I learned that secret and realized that I needed to be on the other side of the desk, not just the property manager, that's how I had to learn how to buy properties and find brokers to find those properties. Then I had to learn on how to obtain loans for those properties. And then, of course, more importantly, how to raise the equity, because I didn't have that money, just like a lot of you. You never start with money, you start with an idea. You always start with something that nobody else can see, and then you go raise capital around it. But you better damn well make sure that if you do get that money, that you can perform. So that's how I started with one property, and I bought one property based on that exact same model. Then, of course, you're like, okay, that worked. I want to buy more. So then I started to buy more, and that's when I realized I didn't know how to run a company. I knew how to buy real estate, but I didn't know how to build a company. And that became the next obstacle to learn. And from there, I got into lots of groups like Entrepreneurs Organization and YPO, or Young Presidents Organization. I started to seek out mentors and coaches that could help me run my business and then scale my business. One of the biggest lessons was to have a 1-year, 3-year, 5-year, and a 10-year plan, and then to hire the right people to execute that plan. The honest truth about running a big company is that there's a fair amount of stress and anxiety and pressure around making payroll at times, around losing big clients, around not hitting your monthly goals or your annual goals even financially, because a lot of your employees are trusting that you can pull it off. They're trusting that they can get paid, and they're trusting that hopefully there's even bonuses at the end of the year if the company does well. So there's a tremendous amount of pressure to be able to perform. I can assure you that it is not a straight line, and it never happens the way that you think it's going to happen. It's literally a series of firefighting. It's scrapping it out for all the income or sales that you've got coming in, and it's constantly managing the expense side while trying to keep the culture as high as possible and the vision for everybody, because the founders have to set the vision for the company, and they have to have the right messaging so that everybody's behind the vision, so that everybody's working together. By far, the biggest mess up I've ever had is hiring the right people. So a long time ago, I realized if you hire on attitude and not on experience, because in the beginning, I always thought, oh, this person has lots of experience, and you bring them on into the right role. They weren't always necessarily leaders, and a lot of times there was friction and turmoil with the employees that work for them. So I've always found that I'd rather have somebody that's really eager and always willing to learn, because they'll always come to you whenever a job's done and say, I need more stuff, I'm done with that, what can I learn now? So you want that person that's always going to have the best attitude, because they're going to grow the fastest. So the biggest lesson by far is to hire on attitude and not necessarily always on experience. So one of the things that's important with growing a business is company culture. Because oftentimes the founder is always out trying to scale and buy new businesses and grow and get new accounts. And they're always selling and they're always trying to bring more money in. But what happens is that the employees that are actually working for you, they can approach burnout. So it's really important that you're always staying connected with all the folks that are actually moving the needle for you. And that can happen. You're going to find all the different personalities that work for you. Some of them are lazy, some of them are workaholics, some of them don't listen, some of them listen too much, some of them can't make decisions, some of them make too many decisions. So you now become more of a psychologist and you have to feel the pulse of the company because everybody's going through something all the time. Sometimes they're on highs and sometimes employees can be on lows. Typically has very little to do with the work itself. Almost always it has to do with friends, family, or health, or something outside of the company. So you have to stay rooted and have empathy for those people and be present with all of them and make sure that the company culture is strong because they come to work for what the company represents, but they also come to work because they want to feel needed, they want to feel respected. And as the founder, you have to stay connected with all of that as you're continuing to grow your business. And once you get that corporate culture, what happens is if somebody comes in that's not good for the culture actually kicks that person out. The founder rarely has to step in and do that for itself. So once you build that culture and it's strong and everybody believes in the direction and the vision of where it's heading, then when somebody comes in that's not aligned, they get kicked out on their own without the founder even having to do anything. The way to do that, of course, is to stay connected and have touch points with everybody during the day, during the week, during the month, and every quarter. So we do things like state of the company meetings where we have everybody Zoom in as an example. We have newsletters. If you guys have ever seen or read the book, The Boys in the Boat, it's very similar to that. There's an 8-man crew in a boat with a coxswain at the end. There's a place for the coxswain and the person in the front, the person in the back. They all have a specific duty, as do the people in the middle. And the coxswain is yelling and telling everybody what speed, and they're watching everything and they're saying, okay, we're behind here, we're behind there, we need to step it up. And each person in that boat has a role. So that's the goal of a CEO. The goal of a CEO is to find the right people, stick them on the bus and make sure the bus is going the right direction, and then eventually put them in the right seats. Because sometimes the employee doesn't even know what seat they're supposed to be in. Maybe they think that they're really good at marketing, but you find later that they're actually better suited in a different role. And if you figure that out for them, then they'll start to flourish in that role. Sometimes it's simply just being aware of the individual and trying them out like you would in any kind of sports team, for example. The hardest part by far of being in my position is you continually get sucked into the operations of the company itself because there's so many things going on and so many needs. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't be involved in those things. You're always balancing the time of when you're working on the business versus working in the business. And so a lot of times, especially small businesses, get caught up in working in the business and they don't have any time to work on the business. So it's very hard to grow unless you're working on the business. So in a perfect world, you should be spending 70, 80, even 90% time working on your business and 10% in the business. And when you do that, then of course you can scale much easier. So Ross and I have hit most of our goals in our 24 years of business. First it was to own 1,000 units, then it was to own 4,000 units, and then it was to own 10,000 units, and we've blown past all of those goals. And so now the next goal is 25,000 units, and that's the next 10-year goal. And we'll definitely hit that. The beauty of setting a goal like that out in front of you, everyone can work toward that goal. Really good people resonate with that kind of a goal because they see progression in a company. A lot of times, if you think about really, really good people that are at the top of their game, they want to be in an environment that's continually moving forward and growing because they're going to have tremendous opportunities to grow inside of that company. It's very hard for a company that's stagnant for the last 10 years to be able to attract really good new talent. They might be able to find employees, of course, but most of those folks are just going to be looking for a safe, secure job. This is a full-time thing. This is not a side hustle. This is not something that you can do and take your eye off the ball. Now, you can at some point create other verticals inside of there, but you have to be all in. You will never get the respect from the employees or people that are aligned with you unless you're all in a business and really help it and grow toward the goals that everyone has set. You cannot do this part-time. And I've made countless mistakes in the past 30 years of running this business. And part of my goal is to tell the community on how they can shortcut some of my mistakes so they can be in better positions faster than even I was, and you can learn from my own mistakes. So I just made a video on the most important mistakes that I promise you, you're not going to want to make. I'd highly recommend checking that out here.